You end up in a scenario where I have been making a lot of noise about this issue consistently, where I have clearly said, and I'm not the only one, where if there was an inquiry across the Bradford district, it would dwarf that in terms of the scale of Rotherham, Rochdale, Telford, Oldham, where we've had.
Keir Starmer thought the scandal was buried. He believed his carefully timed silence, the last-minute backtracking, and the excuse of a local inquiry would be enough to make the grooming gang outrage fade away. But then a Tory MP blew it wide open on live television, dropping names, leaks, and revelations that sent shockwaves across the country. So what exactly did this MP say that changed everything? In this video, we break it all down. Listen very carefully to every word being said.
It seems to me that if the Labour government think it's okay to have a local inquiry because there's justification for it, then why can't they have a national inquiry? Because they can't really have it both ways. I mean, yesterday Keir Starmer said there's no need to have a national inquiry because we've already had one and we haven't enacted what it said we should do. Well, surely by that logic, there's no point in having a local one either.
Well, look, and this is the absolute frustration. So you take Keighley, an area where I represent within the Bradford district, where I've been consistently calling for a rape gang inquiry ever since I was elected, mentioning the issue about 40 or so times in the House of Commons chamber. Yet we have a local Labour-controlled authority that have refused every call to back a local inquiry. And then we have the national government refusing to step in and say to an area like Bradford district council that we should have an inquiry forced on them by government. So you end up in a scenario where I have been making a lot of noise about this issue consistently, where I have clearly said, and I'm not the only one, where if there was an inquiry across the Bradford district, it would dwarf that in terms of the scale of Rotherham, Rochdale, Telford, Oldham, where we've had previously, but yet not local government or national government is willing to do the right thing and implement an inquiry.
Robbie Moore opens with controlled fury. He does not simply accuse Labour of inaction. He lays bare what he sees as a calculated bait and switch. They promised a national inquiry into grooming gangs. Then, just before the Easter recess, Jess Phillips quietly slipped out a statement saying, "Actually, we are not going ahead with it. No debate, no press conference. Just a last-minute announcement dropped when attention was elsewhere." And over that move, she was brutally humiliated.
It's Caroline Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, my honourable friend, the Shadow Minister, gave very graphic and disturbing examples of some horrific abuse suffered by just a couple of the young ladies affected by these grooming gangs. And she asked some important questions about grooming gangs. And I was disappointed to see that the Minister, instead of answering her questions, talked about lists of numbers of meetings that her predecessors have had, and talked about the fact that many girls are abused by people who are not in grooming gangs. Of course that's true, but both are important.
Yes.
One of the answers that I did hear her give to another honourable member was, and I quote, "As I would do if I wasn't sitting in this position, push for more." So I ask her, why are the inquiries only limited to 5 areas? What about those in the other areas? Does she not recognise that giving people a choice of whether their area is investigated or not is an incentive for those who wish to cover up not to bid or not to bid well for those inquiries? And above all, who or what is preventing her from delivering the more she would push for?
However, Jess Phillips offered nothing of real substance in response.
Absolutely nobody is stopping me from pushing for more, which I'm sure that all of my ministerial colleagues would tell you, having been in meetings with me. But I think it is the point of view of Parliament. That is what Parliament is here to do. It is here to strength test the things that we do. And absolutely, I welcome that. And to the previous honourable lady's point, what I absolutely do want to say is this is just the beginning, not the end, as I said in my statement.
This is Keir Starmer's government in a nutshell. Grand promises for public applause, followed by quiet betrayal when no one is watching. Announcing it right before a parliamentary break was not an accident. It was calculated. It was cowardice. Robbie Moore said exactly that on live TV. Before we go any further, are you enjoying the video? If you are, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more exclusive coverage of the major shifts unfolding on Offscript. Now, let's continue. Until now, Starmer has played the polished statesman, but Moore tore that mask away revealing what he describes as a backroom operator, hoping no one notices when victims are pushed aside once again.
And that is incredibly frustrating. You need as much transparency and openness on this issue as possible, not only to reinstall trust back in with the victims, the survivors that have been subjected to such heinous crime for so long, but also you need to ensure that those organisations that have had safeguarding responsibility, or indeed the perpetrators themselves, are held robustly to account. And no local authority, when they know they have done wrongdoing, like I'm sure that is the case within Labour-run Bradford Council, that they will not want to instigate an inquiry. And that is why it is the morally right thing for the government to step in and instigate a statutory inquiry that has the powers to compel witnesses to come forward so that we can address this issue robustly once and for all.
And you put out a statement today on your social media talking about a retired police officer who says that he was threatened with arrest amid the stories circulating about abuse gangs and rape gangs in Bradford. I mean, that's an extraordinary revelation, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is absolutely extraordinary. And this is work that's been done by reporter and investigator Charlie Peters, who has uncovered that an individual who has a huge amount of experience as a retired police officer working on this was subjected to effectively being told to be quiet. This is where the system is absolutely failing and not listening to valid concerns that not only been made by victims and survivors, but concerns that have been made also by the likes of retired police officers that have been quite validly making those concerns, but no one is listening, which is why it is the duty right now of the Home Secretary to make an announcement on the back of these findings that have come out today by Charlie Peters and put in place.
Robbie Moore cuts straight to the reality. Keighley and Bradford have faced allegations for years, yet not a single full inquiry has been launched by Labour-run local authorities or by the Labour government in Westminster. This is Keir Starmer's worst nightmare. If the full truth about Labour-controlled towns comes out, it will not just be shocking, it will be historic. Starmer claims Labour has changed, yet he remains surrounded by local party machines accused of covering their tracks. Moore said it openly, live on air. Why was no one prepared? Because he did not tiptoe around it. He named Bradford. He named Labour. He demanded direct government intervention in Labour-held areas. He forced Starmer into a choice: protect the victims or protect political allies. The answer seemed clear. Moore then revealed a disturbing detail, alleging that a retired police officer who tried to expose abuse in Bradford was threatened with arrest. It painted a picture of where power truly stands. Starmer speaks of justice, yet under Labour-run councils, critics claim the truth is not only ignored but pressured into silence. If even former officers feel intimidated, what hope is left for victims? Moore did more than raise concerns. He exposed what he described as a system protecting itself. This is not framed as a simple policy failure, but as institutional decay. And Starmer's refusal to confront it, critics argue, amounts to complicity.
Something that we have been calling for consistently now across the Bradford district, but this needs to happen at a national level, where we know that there are about 45, 50 towns where concerns of gang rape, child sexual exploitation has happened. And it is about time where we have a national scandal of this nature that the government of the day get to grips with it and provide that reassurance and that proper justice to those many victims and survivors that have been impacted by this.
Robbie Moore calls for a full statutory inquiry, not a review, not a think tank, not another round of listening exercises. He is demanding a process with legal power, one that can compel councils and officials to testify under oath. Moore made it clear that, in his view, Keir Starmer and Labour do not want a genuine investigation because it would lead straight back to Labour officials, Labour-run councils, and Labour's own record.
this issue.
Yes, because you've also very much highlighted the fact that, it's not simply about those perpetrators who did those ghastly things to such young children, because they were children, many of them. It's about the administration of those councils. It's about the police involvement, surely, as well. So it's not really good enough to have the councils and the police investigating themselves. Surely you need an overarching body to do the whole thing.
Absolutely. Openness and transparency is key and at the heart of this. You cannot end up in a scenario which this government seems to be creating, where local authorities are being empowered to mark their own homework. That does not result in any significant change, indeed any reassurance to those victims and survivors. That's why it needs to be truly independent. And it's incredibly frustrating on the back of the announcement that was made by the Home Secretary in January that did indicate that there would be 5 additional local inquiries, that £5 million would be allocated towards, that now seems to be watered down and we're not going to get that. And when, again, I come back to the point that when you have a local authority like Bradford Council that do not even want that inquiry, indeed they released a statement just yesterday strengthening their position that they don't want that additional openness and transparency, it asks the question quite validly, why? So why on earth is this government not doing the right thing and holding their own local authorities to account? It is shameful, and the government, again, need to get a grip. And I call on the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary to do so.
Labour councils investigating Labour councils is like defendants writing their own verdicts. Keir Starmer says he prefers local inquiries. Why? Because local authorities can shape them, soften them, and stretch them out. That is not justice. Critics argue it shows he is more focused on managing the narrative than uncovering the full truth. What do you think? Should there be a national inquiry into the grooming gang scandal? Share your view in the comments below. Do you believe the delay is political caution or something else entirely? Let us know whether you think the government is moving fast enough to address the issue. If you want more videos like this, please like, share, and subscribe for updates on OFS Script and the events shaping it.